and welcome to this special edition, part of our continuing coverage of the crisis brewing in Israel, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Over 3 Israeli teenagers kidnapped on Thursday night. Israeli Prime Minister said today that the operation to find the missing teenagers could take days. This came after a phone call with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas to try and coordinate the search. Israel blockade on Hebron continues with dozens of arrests of Hamas members. On the Gaza side, rockets have been fired towards southern Israel, with Israeli retaliating against several positions. And we are joined tonight by our I-24 News correspondents in the field, reporting in English, Arabic, and French. And also joining me right now in the studio is Dr. Mordechai Kedar, Director of the Center for Middle East and Islam Studies, and also Amir Oren, Defense and Government Analyst for Haaretz daily newspaper. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming to the studio. And of course, this has been the 4th day that we are reporting on this this event that is basically taking Israel outraged and, of course, taking the headlines in Israel and abroad. Amir, what's the latest?
This is an abnormal situation, but within this abnormal situation, there is a sense of normalcy, of people getting used to the idea that this will take days, as Prime Minister Netanyahu said, or even more than a week, as military sources are telling reporters in the field. And one small sign of it is that Netanyahu, when he chose to face the media, did it at 6:30 in the evening rather than on prime time, because right now, as we are speaking, there is a Germany versus Portugal game in the World Cup. So people are getting used to this crisis, even though everyone is, of course, glued to the screens.
Or maybe he just wanted to pass the message in a different hour when he knows that people will watch him and not the World Cup game.
Yes, but there is, if one watches the way Netanyahu manages this crisis, you may see him trying to emulate a famous business rule. If you can't solve a problem, redefine it. The problem is the 3 missing youngsters. He redefined it by saying this is a campaign against Hamas. So this is a whole new ballgame. Now people are asking themselves, what are we going to do vis-a-vis Hamas? Are the Hamas leaders going to be expelled from the West Bank to Gaza? And the missing youngsters, of course, this is still a very important, crucial ingredient, but not the only one.
And of course, maybe the most important question, what is the future of the Palestinian unity government? This I will ask you just after we'll be talking right now. Joining me live from Israel Center Command Headquarters in Jerusalem is I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Good evening, Tal. So what is the latest from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
Good evening, Lucy. The Israeli Prime Minister just a few moments ago left the IDF Central Command after a long security briefing here, after another very long day of ongoing consultations. And while the manhunt continues in the West Bank at this point with no success, Netanyahu's efforts are focusing on 3 fronts. The first one, as you mentioned in the headline, is the Palestinian Authority. Early this morning, the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas phones Netanyahu in a rare phone call. It's the first time the 2 leaders have spoken in over more than a year. And following this conversation, Abbas issues the first official Palestinian condemnation to the abduction. And Netanyahu, too, releases a statement which puts an onus on the cooperation between the 2 sides. The second front is the Hamas. As Mr. Oren mentioned earlier, Netanyahu is now focusing on crushing the Hamas. And this afternoon, he convenes a special security cabinet for a special meeting to discuss the punitive measures against Hamas, trying to pressure it to release some information on the fate of the 3 kidnapped teenagers. And the third front is the international front. Israel has been trying to rally international support throughout recent days. And this evening, at a statement he gives here at the Central Command, Netanyahu commends the U.S. for its strong response, but harshly criticizes other international factors that did not issue strong enough responses from Netanyahu's point of view.
Yes, Tal Shalev, thank you very much for this for now. And before we will see maybe the piece that Tal Shalev did about what happened today and what are the latest developments. Dr. Mordechai Kedar, let's try to understand what is the future of the Palestinian government and the Palestinian Unity government, we should say. And more than that, how come Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas today gets out and says, I condemn this act?
Well, to begin with, the life expectancy of the reunification of Hamas and the PLO was short because of the differences between the two factions, because of the government in Gaza, which Hamas will never give up on, and because of sharing the government and all kinds of issues. Now, when Israel cracks on Hamas, now Hamas start to suspect that the Palestinian security organizations actually support Israel and help Israel to crack on Hamas. And this actually will bring a new blood into the problems between Hamas and the PLO, and all the resentment because of this Israeli action against Hamas will come out, I believe, within days.
So let's see, first of all, what happened in the last 24 hours. And this is a piece by Tal Shalev and Shahal Peled. Let's see it.
Gunfire and a blast rocked the city of Hebron Sunday night as Israeli troops searched for the 3 abducted Israeli teenagers. Dozens of Palestinians were arrested, most of them Hamas members, including Hamas's parliamentary speaker in the West Bank, Abdelaziz Dweck.
We've arrested over 40 Palestinians from Hamas, their leadership, operatives in the field. We've gathered weapons and all different types of things. And what we're trying to do is compress the military effort into a operational activity, into an enhanced intelligence capability.
During the late afternoon, Netanyahu convened a special security cabinet for an update about the situation and to discuss punitive measures against the Hamas leadership.
We're in
the middle of a complicated operation, and we need to be prepared for the option. It will take time. This is a serious incident with serious implications.
Earlier today, in a rare telephone conversation initiated by Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he expected Abbas's assistance in securing the return of the 3 kidnapped students and condemned the Hamas-Fatah pact. In his response, Abbas praised the Palestinian security apparatus for their work in maintaining the quiet and stability over the last few days and called for all not to turn to violence. Israeli Home Front Defense Minister Gilad Erdan backed these words, saying that Palestinian Authority security forces were willingly helping in the search, as Deputy Foreign Minister Tzachi Hanegbi announced it is unlikely Israel will negotiate a prisoner swap with the captors. As Israeli military intelligence forces process more information regarding the kidnapping, the Israeli Air Force struck numerous targets in the Gaza Strip in retaliation for rocket fire by other Palestinian groups.
We began an effort in which Hamas in Judea and Samaria pays a heavy price in its arrest and its assets. This incident won't pass without the Hamas paying a heavy price, and every attempt of any entity from the Gaza Strip to lift its head, as we've seen in recent days, will be answered with fierce response, as we've acted tonight and even more.
Meanwhile, the parents of Eyal Ifrach, one of the abducted teens, faced the media for the first time with an emotional address to their son and to the nation.
To all Israelis, we love you with all our hearts. We feel your warm feelings reaching out to us, and we feel it going to our children, Eyal, Gilad, and Naftali.
Israeli President Shimon Peres has also addressed the matter earlier today, emphasizing the global need to fight terror.
The world understands that the fight against terror is the business of every enlightened and life-valuing person. The terrorists have no hope or purpose. They are messengers of murder with no message, even not for their own people.
So we just heard Shimon Peres, the president, Shimon Peres, saying that the terrorists have no hope to go anywhere.
He has some problem with reality. what you see in Iraq, actually, you see a big success of the terrorists. What you see in Syria, big success of terrorists. And I believe that it adds to the adrenaline of the activity in the West Bank as well.
But, this is not just a hint to the terrorists all around the world. This is a hint, of course, also to Hamas and maybe to Fatah as well. When the Palestinian president is coming out and doing such an act, he's not saying that only to the Israelis. He's also passing a message to Hamas saying, this is maybe not a good deal also for us.
Israel is facing a double dilemma. The first one is, does it really want to weaken Hamas and thereby strengthen Abbas? Because if it does, it will have to pay something politically when the peace process resumes under American auspices. And Netanyahu, at least up to now, did not really want to make concessions to Abbas. He wasn't too sorry to see the peace process stall. This is the first part of the dilemma. The other one is that if Netanyahu wants to justify expulsion of scores of Hamas operatives from the West Bank to Gaza, he must put it in such judicial terms as to say that the withdrawal from Gaza 9 years ago is null and void, and that the occupation is formally back. Most Israeli officials are against it, so Netanyahu must weigh his options very carefully.
So if we want to trying to look at, maybe this is not the right way to look at it, but at the end of the day, or maybe when all this affair will end, we will have to look at who is winning, who is losing. The balance of powers right now, that the Israelis are right now have a support from the Americans and also from Abu Mazen.
Well, don't forget that today everything which happens in the West Bank is under the cloud of Iraq and Syria as well. Today, the world is much more accepting actions against terrorists, against extremists, especially those who carry the green or the black flags. So today, any action of Israel against Hamas is more acceptable than it was like in 1992 when Israel wanted to expel some 415 of Islamic Jihad and Hamas activists after they assassinated an Israeli soldier. So these days it will be easier because of the atmosphere and because of the fact that the whole world today is preoccupied by Iraq, by Syria, by Ukraine also. And you know what? By the World Cup as well.
And we're getting just right now reports from Palestinian sources saying that Palestinian officials are saying that Hamas used this unity government as a smoke screen to continue and doing their actions and maybe to take advantage of the situation. And we heard that today. We heard that from Palestinian officials saying to Abu Mazen behind the scenes, this deal was not good for us. This unity government is not good for us, and now we're seeing the results.
This is domestic Palestinian politics, and it is not grounded in fact. The Israeli security services do not echo this sentiment. They are actually saying that the terror acts and especially kidnappings were more prevalent before the reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas. And ironically, when Hamas started showing its legs in the West Bank, the Palestinian security services came out against it. So there was no real connection between the reconciliation and this act, but for internal Palestinian consumption, it may help certain factions in the struggle.
But before, you know what, I will ask first, we will move to Eli Ochenberg, and then I will ask you if there weren't any voices in the Palestinian society and in the Palestinian government saying maybe this is not good for us and this is going to just come back as a...
No. Only today, the Israeli radio in Arabic aired 2 interviews by Jibril Rajoub and Abu Mazen saying that Hamas actually did a good thing by kidnapping Gilad Shalit because they are the only ones who succeeded to extract more than 1,000 terrorists or activists from the jail. So actually, if Rajoub and Abu Mazen, who are from the PLO, from the hardcore of the PLO, are praising Hamas for their success.
But Dr.
What do you
Kedar,
think what is the message?
Dr. Kedar, you're going back to Gilad Shalit, and now it's 2014.
No, this is the aftermath.
A different time. The Palestinian Authority is in a total different situation, and they have a lot to lose,
Lucy,
especially in the West Bank.
This is the result of what happened with Gilad Shalit. No doubt at all. They were encouraged by that. They knew what now works on Israel. This is the prescription of what to do and how to do in order to get the people out of prisons.
I will let you answer. I just have to move to our correspondent Eli Ochenberg right now at the outskirts of Hebron. Good evening, Eli. So, Eli, what is the latest? What is happening on the ground today in Hebron?
Well, Lucy, the fourth day of this operation is coming to an end, and according to both the political statements and the feelings here on the ground, this operation may take longer than initially expected, but that doesn't mean that the forces here in the Hebron area are less determined to bring this operation to an end. Only today, during daytime, which is not a common thing, a door-to-door operation was committed by the IDF, and that means that the forces are passing house by house, questioning the residents in order to get more information about what is the state of mind within the Palestinian community. And we can divide the current status of activity into three different levels. The first one is, of course, the searching operation itself. It continues with full power. We still have a massive amount of Israeli forces spread all over the West Bank. The second level is, of course, intelligence and what's happening inside the investigation rooms. Since the first day of this operation, Friday, we're talking about 150 Palestinians arrested, and there are a lot of efforts to question them and get more information. And the third level of activity is to keep the area calm as possible. The IDF fears that both the Palestinians and the settlers will express rage in a violent way, and they are trying to keep this entire area relatively calm. And of course, we have the night ahead of us, which we can learn from the past few days. It's a very eventful time, so we can expect many developments during the upcoming hours as well.
Yes, Eli Ochenberg from Hebron, thank you very much for this for now. You wanted to answer.
Yeah, first of all, I saw Eli Ochenberg earlier this afternoon near Hebron, and she's doing a great job there.
She's doing an amazing job, yes.
And already reports are coming in this afternoon of Israeli militants, so-called price tag activists, puncturing the tires of an Israeli officer in the settlement of Yitzhar. So while the Israeli security services are looking for these three youngsters, there are Israeli extremists working against the security services. Now, had we been in a peace process with Abbas and Netanyahu making progress towards peace, such a terror act would make us all grind to a halt. Now that there is a lull in the peace process, it is ostensibly on the sidelines. But the day will come when the Palestinians and the Israelis would go back to the table, and then the question will rise again. What are we going to do with Hamas? Are we letting them join the negotiations, or disrupting the negotiations from outside?
Yeah, but I don't want to be, cynical. But they are going to get back to the table for the what? 1 million time, 1 million and one time. In the meantime, the manhunt for the teens has seen the Israeli military in extensive arrest operations in the West Bank, largely targeting Hamas. More from Elza Maimun.
Benjamin Netanyahu is certain. For him, the triple abduction was perpetrated by Hamas. For the past 4 days, the IDF has been sweeping the West Bank, focusing specifically on the Hebron area with its 600,000 residents. The mission for the 2,500 soldiers who have been deployed, finding the 3 students. But it's also an opportunity for the IDF to strike a decisive blow to Hamas. Although Fatah rules in the West Bank, Hamas is well established, particularly in Hebron and in the southern West Bank. The Palestinian population there is more traditionalist and more religious, also more sensitive to the Islamist ideology. Numerous Hamas political leaders have been arrested. Overnight, the IDF launched an assault on a house in Hebron where 2 Hamas officials were apprehended. One of them is Aziz Douek, Speaker of the Palestinian Legislative Council, who has already spent 6 months in administrative detention. The second one, Hassan Yusuf, a co-founder of Hamas and one of its leaders in the West Bank. 5 members of parliament belonging to the Islamic movement were also taken into custody, along with 3 leaders of the political branch of Hamas in the West Bank. The movement, created in 1987, took 2 different paths in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. But since the 2006 parliamentary elections and Hamas's victory that won 74 seats in Ramallah's parliament, part of the Hamas political leadership has set up in the West Bank.
So we just talked that maybe right now the Palestinians have more to lose, but you don't believe that.
Look, the main problem, whether they have what to lose or not to lose, Israel has no guarantee that any Palestinian state on the West Bank will never turn into another Hamastan. And this is the main problem when we talk about peace between us and the Palestinians. And this
when
actually,
you're saying Hamastan is the Gaza Strip, just let's make
sure,
things
it could repeat itself in the West Bank, and everybody knows it, and nobody can deny it. Nobody can give Israel any guarantee that what happened in Gaza will never happen in the West Bank.
Yeah, but the West Bank, but the Palestinians who are living in the West Bank don't want this to happen.
Who told you?
Because we're seeing it on the web. Because if it could have happened, because I will tell you why.
Hamas won the elections for the student union in Bir Zet. What do you mean? What does it mean? And those youngsters, modern youngsters, those who go to universities, voted for Hamas. So definitely there is some kind of pro-Hamas and maybe anti-PLO for the corruption, some sentiment like this. Who can guarantee to Israel that we will go to sleep with PLO and wake in the morning with Hamas in bed? And this is the problem.
Some of the voices that we heard were that maybe if the 3 youngsters were kidnapped, the 3 teenagers were kidnapped to the Gaza Strip, the situation would have been totally different than to the West Bank, because the West Bank is a totally different situation. The West Bank, it's a totally different deal.
This is not the major point. Where they were taken to, more to the point, is that powers are powerless. Even superpowers like the United States are found to be powerless to have an impact in Iraq and Syria and other places. And Israel, for all of its military might and vaunted security services, and the PLO, Mahmoud Abbas, with his interests and his security services, are now at the mercy of kidnappers who may not even obey the hierarchy of Hamas. So one lone wolf or a couple of youngsters on the Palestinian side can wake up one day, decide to take a vehicle and kill or kidnap some Israelis, and thereby ignite a whole war with Jerusalem and Ramallah powerless to stop them.
Look, the problem is that Hamas, with whatever Israel will do, can take the place over. It can take a year, it can take 2 years, and then we have Qassams, we have missiles, just as we have in Gaza. And nobody in the world can deny it, nobody can prevent it. Now, what happened with the United States in Iraq, Afghanistan, and many other places, the United States had no a plan what to do with the places after they leave. What they wanted to spread democracy. This is what they wanted. This is stupidity, because democracy in this region cannot work. We have to solve the problem by establishing 7 Palestinian Emirates on the West Bank. One in Hebron, one in Jericho, one in Ramallah, one in Nablus, one in Jenin, Tulkarem and Kalkilia, while Israel should forever keep the rural areas to make sure that there is no Hamastan again.
Dr. Kedar, what are you suggesting? To do 7 different peace processes?
We don't need any process. We can come to them, hey guys, these are your borders, this is your emirate, and you better be careful. And if you need water, talk to us. And if you want access to the sea, talk to us. This is how the Middle East works, and this is the problems in Iraq. This is a problem in many others, because a statehood doesn't fit the society.
I want to take things back into proportions, because until this kidnapping, until this current event, because we tend in the media to blow everything and to make a big story out of every every
what the
single
media
thing.
lives on.
Of course, this is what we're living in. But sometimes we need to tell the real story as it is and how the reality is on the ground. Before this event, the West Bank was a quiet place.
Not at all.
The Palestinian Authority
Not at all.
had a perfect coordination, military coordination, and correct me if I'm wrong, Amir Warren, with the IDF. So this current event cannot say that the entire PLO is not basically doing its job the way that it needs to do it.
4 people were kidnapped and murdered during only the last year. So it wasn't quiet. And this was quiet under the surface.
It's all relative, of course. The streets of Tel Aviv and adjacent areas are less safe. There is gang warfare going on sometimes. More people are murdered within the confines of Israel proper than in the West Bank. Having said that, and this is a spike on the graph visualizing what is happening there, there is always the potential. This is a terror act waiting to happen, because up to now, the Israeli military and security services have been very successful in foiling such attacks, but it takes only one failure to ignite.
Let's hear what the Palestinians have to say about this. With me now from Ramallah is Palestinian Minister of Prisoner Affairs, Ashraf Al-Ajrami. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. So, Mr. Al-Ajrami, we just heard the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas condemning this act. We heard today that Palestinian officials are telling to Mahmoud Abbas that was a mistake. This Palestinian unity is a mistake. We are paying the price for Hamas joining us into the government. And you know who's paying the price at the end of the day? Fatah and the Palestinians who are living in the West Bank.
I don't think it is a mistake. I think that the President Mahmoud Abbas all the time wanted the unity of the 2 parts of the state, West Bank and Gaza Strip, and Hamas was in a very weak situation that Hamas accepted all the conditions of President Mahmoud Abbas. So it is good for him to bring Hamas to his situation or position. But we don't know what happened.
Mr. Al-Ajrami, at the end of the day, if it will turn out that Hamas is standing behind this act, if Hamas is standing behind this kidnapped, the one to blame is Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. The one to blame are the Palestinians who are living in the West Bank. And the one who are going to pay the price are the Palestinians in the West Bank.
No, if Hamas is standing behind this act, I think it will be more suspicious thoughts of President Mahmoud Abbas about all the process of reconciliation. I don't think that President Mahmoud Abbas can accept the reality with this act if Hamas stands behind it.
Is there any chance? Is there any chance that the Palestinian president Is there any chance that the Palestinian president will cancel the reconciliation with Hamas?
I don't know what will happen, but there are many figures in Fatah movement call for reconsider the reconciliation if Hamas really stands against this act. I think that it will be a reaction of the Fatah movement if there is a position of Hamas and the leadership of Hamas did this and have this decision. Because sometimes small local groups do something without any decision from the leadership. Sometimes this occurs.
Yes, sometimes this happens, and sometimes people paid the price. Mr. Ashraf Al-Ajrami, thank you very much for talking with us. Last comments, gentlemen?
Yes, Fatah and Hamas are bitter enemies and will remain so no matter what the political face is put on it. The interesting thing in Israeli society, which this incident shows, is that there is no identification between Israel proper and the settlers in the West Bank. There is some disparity.
Yes, gentlemen, I have to
like
go out. I have to go out for a break.
4 days ago.
I have to go out for a break. I really have to go out for a break. But Dr. Mordechai Kedar, you're not leaving us anywhere. Of course, you'll be joining us just maybe tomorrow afterwards. We're going out for the meantime. So 2-minute break, and then we will be back. Good evening and welcome to this special edition, part of our continuing coverage of the crisis brewing in Israel, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Over 3 Israeli teenagers kidnapped on Thursday night. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said today that the operation to find the missing teenagers could take days. This came after a phone call with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas to try and coordinate the search. Israel blockade on Hebron continued, and with dozens of arrests of Hamas members on the Gaza side, rockets have been fired towards southern Israel, with Israeli retaliating against several positions. And of course, we are joined tonight and all day by our I-24 News correspondents in the field, reporting in English, Arabic, and French. And also right now, joining me in the studio is Professor Abraham Zion. Good evening.
Good evening.
Former Deputy State Attorney for Israel and a Senior Middle East Analyst, Ali Waqid. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. And social media consultant Tal Navarro. Thank you very much for being here. And Mr. Zion, I will start with you. You know, there is a big discussion in Israel concerning what these 3 teenagers did on the road hitchhiking at the middle of the night, when they know that it is really dangerous, when they know that they should not do it. But maybe the misunderstanding comes is because it's totally different situation in the settlements. It's totally different situation in the culture that these people are living, and the way that they think, that it's totally different than the rest of the Israelis who are living in the center of Israel. Or in the
That's true. That's true. The situation is entirely different because there you have no public transportation, and people have to move around. So the only way to do it is to hitchhike. I, for example, travel to Ariel a few times a week, and I see those people on the road trying to stop cars and to get to their destination. The situation, you see, the situation there in that particular place was that it was a place where you hitchhike. In other words, you stop cars and they take you to where you want to go. So it was not considered a dangerous place. It was considered a place where it was usual for people to go there and stop cars. So for us, it seems entirely, what were they doing there in the night and so forth. But that's the way they travel.
And that's the way to travel. And maybe it was, between the discussion between the left and the right in Israel is maybe making things easier on one side to try and I don't know if to use the word understand this abduction, this kidnapping, or to say, what are they doing there? Why are they doing there? In this way or another, maybe it's their fault that they put themselves into this situation. And this comes again about maybe the division between the Israeli society with the settlers, that the settlers sometimes feel that the Israeli society who lives inside the borders of Israel don't understand them.
It all begins with the mistake of settlers and settlements. You know that Ariel is 20,000 people. It's not a tent with a few camels. It's a city. And there are other places where there are cities. So we call them settlers. But actual people live there. There are houses.
A term that the state gave them.
Well, I don't know whether the state gave them. They bought these houses.
Oh, the Israeli society gave them.
Yeah.
This is not a you know,
well,
settler.
It's the
is
same as if you buy a house in Jaffa and somebody gives it to you. You know, it's the same thing. I mean, you know that most plots in Israel belong to the government, belong to Keren Kayemet, they belong to the Minhal Mikarkei Israel, and they sell it to people. And most people live in lands which belong to the government, in fact. So nobody gives them that. They buy it on the market and they pay for it.
Ali, this discussion that we're seeing is also happening in the Palestinian Authority about whether it's okay to kidnap a soldier and not kidnap a civilian, or all fair and everything is fair and all the Israelis are the same, no matter if they're soldiers or civilians.
No, the truth is that the Palestinian would rather prefer that the kidnapped were soldiers and not civilians, because in this way the image of this operation is more kind of a terror act than of a legitimate strike by the Palestinians under occupation in a conflict with Israel. The discourse right now among the Palestinian, whether the price that they are going to pay because of this kidnapping is worth to be paid. It is true that thousands of Palestinians' families are waiting for their beloved one to be released. It is true that because of the history and also the near history with the release of Gilad Shalit for more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, the Palestinians believe, since the 80s, by the way, that kidnapping Israelis is the best way to get the Palestinian prisoners released. So
let's right now we want to be hear what Sahar Kawasmi, member of the Palestinian Legislative Council in the Fatah bloc from Hebron, has to say about this. This is not, first of all, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. This is not a good situation for the Fatah movement.
What we are seeing in the land, there is a real collective punishment toward all people who are living in Hebron. This is not toward any organization. They are attacking every place. There's closure in every entrance of the city. It is forbidden for Palestinians to go, who are living, Hebronized people, to go from the borders. Didn't allow them to go to their works. This is kind of collective punishment toward people who are living inside Hebron, and the people here.
Mrs. Kawasmi, I will ask you as direct as I can. Are you afraid?
From what's going on? Of course. The people, they are under collective punishment. Nobody knows what's going on. This is kind of really operation and of the Palestinian people who are living here. Nobody knows what's going on. Why all of these issues? If there's really people who are kidnapped, why the Hebronized people, they are punished for this? They haven't any information. They haven't anything about this, and just actions toward people who are living here. I think this is it is not going with any kind of realistic and objective way of realizing what's going on.
Yes.
This is kind of unilateral actions without any kind of facts. Yes. How they are dealing with this issue.
Yes, of course we understand this. Sahar Kawasmi, member of the Palestinian Legislative Council in the Fatah
I want to comment, please. You asked her whether it is a hard moment for the Fatah movement, and the truth is that it is a hard moment for the Fatah movement because two things. First of all, the Israeli operation under the radar is no more concentrated in Hebron. A Palestinian young man was killed in the region of Ramallah. Palestinian militants were arrested in the region of Nablus and Bethlehem and elsewhere. But the dilemma is, we are talking now about a long-term operation in case that the three guys are not found. But a long operation with more sufferance for the civilian population immediately serves the Hamas. So the Hamas will gain points if it is revealed that he is the organization that kidnapped the three guys and demanding the ransom, demanding the release of the Palestinian prisoners, and on the other hand, a long-term operation with a heavy Israeli hand over the civilians will also bring the Hamas to gain points, to score more points on behalf of the Palestinian Authority, on behalf of the Fatah movement.
I also want to comment, but I understand that it's her turn now.
Yeah.
And if you would be kind enough to give me to
I will,
comment,
yeah, of course I will be. Of course, I will give you the opportunity to comment about these things. But we know that the real war right now is happening also in the social media. It's happening in the internet, and it's happening on the rumors that we're getting since the beginning of this operation from the IDF, from the Israeli side, and also from the Palestinian side. And now it became a totally different battlefield that do we know how to handle?
Social media has always been the first place where you get the news since it's here. You know, every news that comes out, you can hear it first, you can read it first on Twitter, on Facebook, on different channels, on the digital platforms. Right now, there is a huge campaign in Israel called Bring Back the Boys. Yeah, and it refers to the Bring Back Our Girls, of course, that ran on May recently. And there's more than 82,000 likes on the Facebook page. It's a huge power, and it's all over the world. People are uploading pictures and images with posters and slogans of Bring Back Our Boys. There's a real war out there because it's not only our side, it's also Palestinian side that is bringing also up all those slogans against the Israelis or against all this issue of the kidnapped kids. And the main thing to understand is that one of the most important things is that the Israelis and the Palestinians are using the same hashtag or the same backfiring. They're actually backfiring at who starts the war. I mean, if Israel starts to Bring Back Our Boys in a hashtag on Twitter, then Palestinians are using pictures and different images of Palestinians that of Israelis that capturing the kids.
We'll continue talking about this matter, but joining me right now live from Israel's Central Command headquarters in Jerusalem is I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Tal, so what was discussed in the Israeli cabinet meeting early on today?
Well, good evening, Lucy. Today, the Israeli Security Cabinet was convened for the second time since the crisis broke down on Thursday. And if the first meeting that was convened on Saturday was mainly used for a discussion and for a briefing of the security events, in this meeting already it was much more significant, and the cabinet ministers are already down to discussing details and to discussing measures. They're trying to find a way to punish Hamas, to crush Hamas, and to make the Hamas leadership pay a price for the abduction. So the Justice Ministry has been asked to advise and revise what are the legal options standing before Israel. But some of the measures that have been discussed are, for example, deportation of the Hamas leadership from the West Bank to Gaza. Another option that has been discussed is demolition of Hamas operatives in the West Bank, and sanctioning and punitive measures against Hamas detainees in the Israeli prisons. But this meeting ends with no conclusions, and the Israeli Security Cabinet will be convened again tomorrow in Tel Aviv to continue the discussion.
Yes, Tal Shalev, thank you very much for this. Mr.
One more thing, just one more thing. You know, just a few hours ago, there was a video uploaded, I don't know if anyone talked about it yet, by Muhammad Zoabi.
And it was uploaded actually yesterday.
No, it was uploaded.
So it was
spread all over
yesterday, but it started to be uploaded
exactly today. And it's really, really viral and powerful, and it's something that we cannot.
Yeah, he's a member of the Zoabi, Hanin Zoabi, the member of the parliament,
and it's his
who
condemned this video, and it's a totally other discussion. But Mr. Tzion, I promised you that I will let you answer. So,
well, there is one thing I cannot understand. I heard my colleague here speak. He speaks about legitimate kidnapping. There is no legitimate kidnapping.
Now, wait, let me make a point.
Yeah. He said it about how the Palestinians legitimate kidnapping. And after the Oslo Accords, the Palestinians, all the Palestinians, have given an oath that they would stop violence and they would not take any acts of threats and so forth. Now, when you speak about kidnapping kids, what? To release murderers? To release people who killed children or babies at the age of 3 months in their beds? You want to release those people? If you are interested in peace, you should put these people in jail because they are not heroes. They are people of the most debased form who killed children and women in their beds, in their houses, civilians, targeted people. You cannot claim speak about legitimate kidnapping. There is no kidnapping that is legitimate. And let me tell you one thing.
Professor, I don't know if you saw the images from West Bank and Gaza, Palestinians distributing candies and sweets after the news happened. And they don't mind whether they are kids. They are, for them, Israelis. So this is the situation of the Palestinian society. Unless you want us to change the image, the truth. This is the truth. Whether we like it or we don't like it.
Now, if this is the peace, those are the people that Israel made peace with.
Israel didn't make peace with Hamas.
Oh, Israel made peace with all the Palestinians. Let me tell you that the Oslo Accords speak about the Palestinians as a whole, not the Hamas and the Jihad and the Hezbollah and other people. They speak about.
Yeah, but it was a totally different time when Yasser Arafat was the Palestinian Authority president, and it's a totally different time now with
if it's
Hamas.
Different,
and a lot of people
wait a
are saying
minute.
that you cannot compare between
if you
the two.
if anybody says that it's a different time, so there is no Oslo Accords.
No,
and
but
if there is no Oslo
the
Accords,
Palestinian side who signed with Israel, the Oslo Agreement didn't kidnap. Hamas is the one who, after the 2006, kidnapped Israelis. By the way, even before the Oslo Agreement, the organization who kidnapped Israelis, Ilan Saadon and others, was not the PLO and Fatah. It was
the
Hamas.
PLO and Fatah who bombed themselves in buses and in cafes and in cinemas and in all places, even here in Jaffa.
It's true. We were talking about kidnapping now.
Look, I'm talking about terrorism. And I'm talking about terrorism after a peace agreement was signed and was ratified in the White House.
I have some news for you. The Palestinians have a different vision about what is terrorism, Mr. Professor. Whether you like it or you don't like it, what you consider as terror, for them is it a legitimate act. So go now and educate them. We are talking about now facts.
I can kill people and say that this is an act. This is the way
we're giving here an analyst. We're not giving here opinions. This is what Ali's trying to explain to you.
I define murder as something very high.
Society defines the same thing in a very different way.
No, murder is murder everywhere.
Okay, so let's just do a small break. People from around Israel continue to show support for the families of the teenagers kidnapped in the West Bank last Thursday. I know that you have a problem with me saying the West Bank, Mr.
Yeah, it's Judea, Samaria. It has been there so for 4,000 years.
I-24 News correspondent Nuri Shapira went to Nof Ayalon, a small town with no more than 430 families.
Nof Ayalon, Monday noon. Residents of this picturesque place received unexpected media attention as officials came to Frankel's house to support the family.
Ever since young Naftali was kidnapped in the West Bank Thursday night, politicians, relatives, friends, and even strangers are arriving this house, located in central Israel's Ayalon Valley.
I don't know the family or any of the sons, but I came to strengthen the family from the bottom of my heart, and with God's help, the boys will return.
Among the visitors were Israeli Minister of Justice Tzipi Livni, opposition leader Isaac Buzi Herzog, and Israel's chief military rabbi Rafi Peretz.
We are people of faith. The prayer gate has never been locked. We know that praying works. We turn to God and ask Him to do His share as we do ours, so the boys will return safely.
Despite the fact that Naftali was also an American citizen, none of the officials who came here today represent the U.S. government. However, the family did receive a surprising visit from Esther Pollard, wife of convicted Israeli spy Jonathan Pollard, who has served a life sentence in an American jail for almost 30 years. Esther herself became a well-known figure in Israel and abroad, fighting for the release of her husband.
It was extremely important to my husband, Jonathan Pollard, that I personally visit each of the families and express to them a message of strength and hope and prayer and blessing.
The word son was frequently used here today, as many of those who came to support the Frankel family feel like Naftali is their own son. But for now, the teenager's real family is still desperately waiting for news and a sign of life.
And I just want to thank Professor Abraham Tzion, former Deputy State Attorney that was with us, and Senior Middle East Analyst Ali Wakat that were with us, and now they just said goodbye. I didn't have the chance to tell them goodbye, so thank you very much. And we're moving to the daily question, as is now almost standard around the world. Social media becomes part of the news after 3 Israeli teens were kidnapped on Thursday, allegedly by Hamas. A Twitter and Facebook campaign, Bring Back Our Boys, was launched mimicking the Nigeria's big Bring Back Our Girls. Arab media was quick to make its own version. Today on the Daily Question, we asked you, can social media play a role in the case of the kidnapped Israeli teens? And joining me right now in the studio to look at what some of our viewers had to say is I-24 News editor Noreen Sanger. Good evening.
Good evening, Lucy.
And still with us is a social media consultant, Tal Naval. Thank you very much for staying with us. So let's see what our viewers had to say.
Let's get right into it. Lucy, you mentioned Bring Back Our Boys mimicked the Nigerian campaign, but it got a lot more blowback than that one did from the Palestinian side. Collectively, I-24 News viewers said it can play a role. Social media can play a role. 62% said yes, 33% said no. But on that, within the yes and within the no, they were almost as divided as the social media campaigns themselves. I just want to read a few of them out. Those who said it can were divided. Naomi says, on one hand, a social media campaign can bring about more awareness, and this can lead to more pressure on the kidnappers. Barbara, on the other side, yes, they can, a very dangerous effect. The more social media plays it up, the better for the kidnappers. After all, their goal is attention, exposure, and the highest price possible. So you have people say it can play a role, it's good, it will help bring attention to the plight of the kidnappers. On the other hand, you have them saying, this is terrorism, is theater. This is exactly what the kidnappers want.
How effective is these campaigns on the social media? Because at the end of the day, sometimes it's helping, and sometimes it's creating, let's say, a discomfort. Because in the case of the Nigerian girls, a lot of people said about this, about Michelle Obama's campaign, that it's a little bit pathetic to see someone who's just at the middle of the day saying about 200 girls, bring back our girls.
A lot of people say that, you know, they don't have the power and they don't have the tools to fight it, so they bring up posters online. But Michelle Obama could do much more than that, and that's what, you know, people are saying. At the end of the day, social media affects a lot, and it affects for good and it affects for bad. Each battle, it's different, and on this case, it affects for both sides, because First thing, the IDF uploaded a picture saying, bring back our boys, and a lot of people brought up this, and then it was backfired at them, and a lot of people from Palestinian side, and the same to Michelle Obama, it happened, that she got a lot of pictures of her popped up all over, and saying a lot of signs on her poster in different messages. So basically, and also this hashtag, there's a hashtag says, bring back our boys, which had 2,800 tweets per hour in the beginning.
And it developed into a sort of hashtag war.
Exactly.
Now with the Palestinian
side. And the Palestinians bring it up against the Israelis. So it's a real war out there.
I have to say, a lot of our viewers on the no side were also quite pessimistic. They're saying what you were mentioning with the Michelle Obama, bring back our girls, that it's sort of naive. Annie said, don't think so. Just like the campaign in Nigeria, it's mostly an opportunity to feel for celebrities to feel they're doing something important. The story has left the news cycle, hasn't it? So maybe it is a wave and then it kind of disappears with the rest of news. Others were equally sort of belittling the use of it. But then again, we have others saying that, like Eve Brahim, for evil to flourish, it only requires good men to do nothing. So we have these viewers who are saying, okay, maybe it won't change the world, but to do nothing is worse. So to spread it on social media may help.
You know, we are trying to see what we can do as civilians and what we can do as media.
You know, as individuals, we don't have any different power, different tool, anything else we can do except shouting on the social media platforms. And this is also something that comes directly to those people who we want to reach.
What is the problem? No red lines in the social media.
That's
no
a
red
problem.
Lines
That's
in,
a known problem. A known problem for governments, for not only for this war specific, but for everyone.
It makes me think of just one of our viewers said, Maria, who said disinformation is a tactical method of warfare throughout history. Social media is the disinformation warfare of the 21st century. So it's been used in this story a lot to spread various rumors that we found out were incorrect. So maybe this is just our new version of spreading disinformation and psychological warfare.
This is psychological warfare.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And we are seeing that the Palestinians are also playing with this by sending wrong messages to the IDF. And I'm saying when maybe... I don't know how you can put a responsibility on each and every individual around the world, but we need to understand that we have responsibility when we are typing our words out there, when we are saying what we're saying, because this can prevent or this can danger the lives of people who are trying to do their job.
Sometimes I think that, first of all, we need to understand that Facebook and Twitter and all the social platforms are democratic places. They're open channels for people to say what they want and represent what they want to represent. And the most important thing is to understand that governments and armies and different groups has to teach from the DNA of their society, to bring courses, to teach, to make them understand how responsible they are, all the soldiers, all the people in the government. Everyone has to understand that it is their responsibility. When they're writing something, it goes to everyone. And not everyone understands that. Not everyone knows the social platforms, not everyone knows how to use them, not everyone understands them. And if we don't teach them from the DNA, even soldiers, even,
civilians. Just civilians.
Social
just to
media
use
has
it
power,
for
so
good,
use it for
good
good.
purposes.
In schools
definitely.
or everywhere.
We just have to go out for a small break, 2-minute break, 4-minute break, and then we will 5-minute break, and then we will be back for the rest of this special edition. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to this special edition, part of our continuing coverage of the crisis brewing in Israel, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Over 3 Israeli teenagers kidnapped on Thursday night. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said today that the operation to find the missing teenagers could take days. This came after a phone call with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas to try and coordinate the search. Israel blockade on Hebron continues with dozens of arrests of Hamas members on the Gaza side. Rockets have been fired towards southern Israel, with Israeli retaliating against several positions. And we're joined, of course, tonight and all this day by I-24 news correspondent in the field, reporting in English, Arabic, and French. And with me right now is in the studio is Dr. Colonel Moshe Elad, former security coordinator to the Palestinian Authority, and also Yitzhak Levanon, former Israeli ambassador to Egypt. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So let's try to look at the diplomatic, coordination side of this affair. And it's and I want to start with you because Colonel, because this is a complicated situation, but it is a totally different situation than the situation that could have happened in the Gaza Strip. In the West Bank, the rules are totally different.
Definitely. Well, in the West Bank, we have a very good coordination and cooperation. I won't say collaboration because it's very close to that since a couple of years ago. The Palestinian Authority has definitely adopted the idea and the notion that this is going to be a question of life and death. What I mean is that if in the past the Palestinian organization hasn't cooperated so well, today there's no better than what we see in the field. Why? Because we have Israeli and Palestinians. We have a common interest. It's more very deeply in our interest, which is Hamas and Islamic Jihad and probably some others, Salafi and others. Therefore,
Dr. Mordechai Kedar, that was here in the beginning of this broadcast, may disagree with you, because he will tell you the situation at the time with Gilad Shalit, when the Gilad Shalit kidnapping happened, it's not different than the situation right now. It's totally the same. It's absolutely the same. It's the Palestinians are the same Palestinians, and the Palestinian Authority is the same Palestinian Authority.
I disagree. I definitely disagree, because in the West Bank, since I would say a couple of 5-6 years ago, we see that the coordination is very good. And again, they are not becoming Zionists. They are not becoming very Israeli. The only notion which stands instead in the middle of these two parties, these adversaries, is Hamas. Let me tell you this: if Israel is going to leave the West Bank tomorrow, I don't give more than 5-6 days to the Palestinian Authority to remain there. Because Israel is, I'm not so impressed with, with the ideas of Abu Mazen saying that Israel is doing a cleansing, ethnic cleansing and stuff like that. I'm sure that under the formal, canals, there's a lot of work done between the two parties in order to stop Hamas, to stop Islamic Jihad. And now we would like to see what comes first from this coordination.
So from what we're hearing, and according to this analysis, basically we might hear, and this is a question, that Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas may say, okay, I don't want this unity government anymore because you are hurting my people, your own people?
Look, I think that Mahmoud Abbas is in a very peculiar situation. Definitely he is embarrassed with what happened. The kidnapping of these three guys, I don't think that it helps a lot the Palestinian Authority. On the contrary, just, a month ago he signed the reconciliation and he established the reconciliation government. And saying quite clearly to the whole public and to the whole world, he said that, those people, meaning Hamas, will follow my steps, meaning, I would like to reach an understanding, a political understanding with Israel, and we would like to stop any violence. And suddenly, we see that there is violence, and this violence is coming from Hamas, probably a local cell from the Hamas, but it's still the Hamas ideology who is behind this. So he is embarrassed by this situation. Look, I think that after signing the Oslo Accord, the understanding was, and I think it is even written inside, there is a certain kind of cooperation that we were expecting, and finally, with the help of the Americans and Dayton, General Dayton, we reached that stage. And this is why today we do have this kind of good, sometimes it's a very good cooperation on the field of the intelligence and the field of the security between the two parties because of the common interest that we do have. But this will not change the equation. Abu Mazen is in a dire situation. He will have to decide in which direction he will go, whether he will continue to support Hamas and he will swallow what they did for him, or he will turn to the international community and say, look, really, I would like to have peace. I would like to coexist with the state of Israel, and I'm changing direction.
So, according to this, what are the chances that we will hear President Mahmoud Abbas giving a statement that's saying this deal is off?
Well, I think
if he will have the proof from Israel that it is Hamas who did this act.
Well, I would say more than that. I'm not sure that this group of people who did this kidnapping they may belong to Hamas, but there are so many, branches and so many small organizations in the West Bank that necessarily probably get from Hamas some support. There might be a moral support and some logistic support. However, you can definitely understand that there are some groups that, let's say, after the release of the last group of prisoners, not so satisfied with what happened. And I believe that those people who did what they did with these three guys are willing now to put pressure on both Hamas and Abu Mazen in order to get a new release. That's the only way I see. I don't think that Hamas, after the signing of the reconciliation with Abu Mazen, would be ready today, because they are trying now to get into the, let's say, the European community. America, Kerry has announced that he is going to support such. So I don't think that they are going now to do something that will put probably a stick in their carriage. I believe that those who did that would like to embarrass Hamas, Abu Mazen, Israel as well, and I believe that they belong to the people in Hebron, which they have a long history of, growing out of the stage.
You just touched the point about the people in Hebron and the situation in Hebron. Maybe if we want to talk about a disputed territory, this is a disputed territory. Hebron is maybe the showcase of this entire conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians, especially because there is this settlers community that is living there and living really close to the Palestinians. From what you know from the field and on the ground, the settlers there are willing to hear about a certain understanding with the Palestinians, or they just see this as an impossible situation that you cannot solve?
The settlers don't care about, who lives there despite their existence in the city. I believe also that the Palestinian population doesn't care about the settlers. They would like to see, Hebron empty of settlers, and it's quite understandable. However, what's going on in the last couple of years, I guess, is that the Palestinians understand this is going to be probably, we are going to see a new arrangement, a new settlement in this city. So it begins, they don't necessarily touch the settlers, they touch, the outframe of the Israeli settlement in the West Bank. What I'm saying is that now what happened in the last couple of days is putting a lot of pressure on the Palestinian population in order to bring out some positive outcomes. I believe that the government, the army, from my experience in the past, put pressure on this community and see probably they would understand that stuff like that cases like that bring a lot of damage to the community, not to Israel. So it might help, it might not. We'll see that in the next couple of days.
Yes, and although we just touched this subject of the settlers, although 2 out of the 3 kidnapped youngsters don't live in the West Bank settlements, they all study there and were kidnapped in the Judea and Samaria area. The latest events ignite once again the fierce debate regarding the Israeli relations with the Jewish enclave in the region. I-24 News correspondent Jaffa Port has the story.
The kidnapping of 3 students from the Gush Etzion settlement region in the West Bank further widens the gap between Israelis and settlement residents. In interesting timing, a new public opinion poll taken before the abduction shows a drastic decline in public support for settlers since 2009. The 550 individuals who participated in the poll represent a trend of decreasing support for them among the Israeli public, with 59% believing the settlements harm Israel's relationship with the American government, 40% believing that Jewish settlements are a waste of the country's money, and 52% who say they would support a partial or full disengagement from the West Bank as part of an agreement with the Palestinians. The poll, conducted by a think tank and presented at Ariel University, also reveals the public is less opposed to territorial concessions and more concerned by international boycotts. Some have conditioned their support for settlers on their combating Jewish lawbreakers in the territories known for price tag acts.
I can understand them, but I can't support them on the other hand. If it causes a lot of trouble, and I'd either stop building more or find a way to build more and coexist.
I think the fact that the settlements are part of a peace process and their development creates a much bigger problem along the whole process.
Others believe there aren't enough Jewish settlements in the West Bank.
We need to continue and settle there and bring people there and get rid of those who don't belong there. Our cousins. It's a disgrace how our country acts after 3 yeshiva students were abducted. They just wanted to get home.
The current situation has also stirred great debate in social media, especially when a soldier from the IDF spokesperson unit reportedly wrote a provocative post in a private group.
I'm angry that there are foolish people who think they can hitchhike at 10:30 p.m. in the middle of the Judea and Samaria area because God will save them. So please, let God save them. Why does the entire country need to be on its feet because a group of retards who live abroad?
This angered many Facebook users, some enough to open a page calling for his prosecution. Shuli Mualem, a member of the Israeli parliament, also chose to denounce the post, threatening to personally take care of his immediate release from the military.
If you are still serving in the IDF spokesperson unit, as written in your profile, I suggest you start figuring out what to do when you're back being a citizen. I'm going to take care of it personally.
It seems the settlements argument is one Israel will continue to have for many years. Meanwhile, people continue with business as usual, quite pessimistic of any real change in the near future.
Until the powers that be change the way they do things, the people who live on the streets will continue to buy their cheese, go home and have lunch and get on with their lives.
You know, this is amazing. It's maybe the typical Israeli life that something happens in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days, and just a minute afterwards, we are all getting back to our normal lives, especially in this case, because it seems that the war is happening in the West Bank, in Hebron, and in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, in the north, in the south, maybe less in the south. Life continued.
What is the alternative? So we'll stop living? I guess that everybody in Israel, no matter if he is a settler or non-settler or a kibbutznik or whatever, feels very well, you know, like any other in the entire free world, that we need to make something in order to stop terrorism in all its shapes and forms. And it doesn't matter, but you have to keep on living and do whatever you need.
I beg to differ. I don't think that business is as usual. Even we are talking about, you know, the large public. It's correct that everybody is going to his business and to go to the ministries and working. It is correct per se. But I think there is a lot of anxiety. There is a lot of people who are following, watching TV all day. This issue became, you know, part of this concern that we see with the large public. So basically, physically you are at work, but mentally you are busy with that situation.
I want to ask you, just we will go just for a short minute to Eli Ochenberg, who's in Hebron right now. But I will ask you what I want to ask you in a short while. But joining us right now from the outskirts of Hebron is I-24 News correspondent Eli Ochenberg. Eli, so what is the latest? Because it seems that it's, for now, relatively quiet.
Yes, Lucy, it is relatively quiet, but only an hour ago we were talking about a possible expression of rage either from the Palestinian side or from the settler side, and we're now reported that 3 settlers were arrested during a protest in the main junction of Gush Etzion. So that proves that when the tensions are high, anything is possible. And again, we are entering to the hours of the night during which the IDF will try to get advantage in this investigation, maybe to commit another arrest, maybe significant arrest like last night. So as you can see behind me, the city of Hebron is now entering those hours. We cannot tell what will happen tonight, but we for sure know that it will not be quiet. The IDF is very determined to bring this operation to an end and is more than prepared to act according to any command that will be given. And then we will, of course, keep you updated live from here later on.
Yes, Eli Ochenberg, thank you very much for this, and please be safe. I wanted to ask you, Mr. Levanon.
By the way, just to mention, that operation will continue. There is no way that Israel will back off. I mean, there is no way. We have to continue with the rolling pressure in order to reach, the
Something.
golden information that we need and to bring about the release of these 3 teenagers.
I'm trying to look at it from a diplomatic point of view. Benjamin Netanyahu right now is going out and giving statements to the entire society, to all the citizens of Israel, saying that, of course, Israel will do what it can. How this can affect a future Palestinian-Israeli process?
Well, look, first of all, I think that Benjamin Netanyahu, he is compelled, let's say, to go to the public because this is a major situation where we live in these days. I mean, he has to go to the large public and say, look, this is the situation. Otherwise, somebody else will do it. And knowing well Mr. Netanyahu, he would like to be in the forefront of, the public and the TV, etc., etc. So there is a kind of an obligation from the side of the Prime Minister to explain to the public what he's doing, because Israel is doing something. Look, it is encircling Hebron. Nobody can get in and out. There is an operation, a military operation. You have quite 3,000 soldiers in Israel. Those have families. So he has the obligation to explain to the people. Secondly, I think that those who perpetrated this act by kidnapping the people, these teenagers, they did a strategical mistake. Because there will be a change in the equation between us and the Palestinians. And the Palestinians, I'm talking about the authority.
Authority, yes.
Because things are going to change. If you will take, for instance, the question of the prisoners, I think that in the mind of the people today in Israel is that probably we did a mistake. We should have, let's say, do something else, let's say, dealing with the Palestinians about the settlements probably, or about the border between us and the future state of the Palestinian state, instead of dealing with the prisoners. So there are things who are going to change. Israel clearly is saying that it's going to persecute let's say the Hamas cells who are in the West Bank. Because in the mind of the Israelis, we are looking at the major picture. And when Israel is looking at the major picture, we see the jihadists in Sinai. We see Daesh coming from Iraq, moving toward Jordan, Baghdad and Jordan. We see what's going on with the Jabhat al-Nusra in Syria. We see, wait a minute, we have here a fertile...
And we see what is going on right now in the entire Middle East.
There is a fertile land here in the West Bank with Hamas, I'm not talking about Gaza, that Israel fears sincerely.
Before we cross the borders to Sinai, I guess that this case has a lot of explosion or deterioration potential. Imagine that, there's going to be a retaliation from Israel, maybe on Hamas Gaza. You can imagine what would be then and where we are going from there, because Hamas, don't forget, has a lot of potential to damage inside Israeli settlements.
Let's hope just for in the next few hours we will have a quiet night, and maybe this will bring this affair to an end, maybe this night. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with me tonight in the studio.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, and that concludes our special edition for this evening. Thank you to all our correspondents reporting in the field in English, Arabic, and French. Of course, they're doing an amazing job. And thank you to, of course, gentlemen, Dr. Colonel Moshe Elad and Yitzhak Levanon. Again, thank you for being with me, and thank you, our viewers, for being with us tonight. Of course, we will keep on updating you. Have a great night from the Jaffa Port, and quiet.